Look within. Look within. Look within. And live your life. And live your life on the edge of two worlds. A reality where you find true understanding of who you are. Take the step into the unknown with Alexander McCaig and Jason Rigby as they explore the thinly veiled world of consciousness, spirit, and the human condition. Join them in embodying the oneness of all. Walk the cliff's edge between the seen and the unseen realities. Welcome to High Density Living.
Dun, dun. Jason, we're back.
What's up, Alexander McCaig?
I wanted to. So I brought this up the other day, and it's a contradictory statement. So I've been thinking a lot about not thinking.
That's the shirt.
Well,
you told me what it meant.
Oh, the Ich weiß es nicht, which means I don't know or I don't know anything. But no, it beyond. Well, that's just stating a truth.
Right.
You can't. I don't know anything. It means I'm always in a constant state of learning. Right. That's why I appreciate this German saying. But and German's also a very precise language. English is real sloppy. It's better. It's better in terms of descriptiveness for talking about thoughts, emotions, describing pictures. German's quite beneficial.
Yeah, probably technical manuals.
Yeah, but life is technical and logical and rational, and there's a language that fits with it very well.
Right.
And German has a word for, we have to say he or she.
Right.
Or he and she. They just have one word for it.
That's awesome.
Which is nice.
Yeah. It should be that way anyways, because we're all plural forms.
Yeah, it's stupid that
inside of us.
The fact that it's been separated.
Yeah.
In English, colonists, damn Brits.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is I've been thinking a lot about not thinking. And what I mean by that is there's a place in meditation that we try and get to. So when people meditate, they think that they want some sort of specific outcome. Whatever it might be. Like, I want to feel better, or I want to feel calm, or I want to, slow things down, or I want to, evolve my consciousness. I want to do all these things.
But can you meditate and have an expectation?
No, you can't, because then it's not truly a meditation. Meditation is an awareness of stillness or silence.
Right.
So when I say that, I'm thinking about not thinking. I'm talking about the thought void. What does that mean to you when I say thought void?
Thought void means that there's this space. Mm-hmm. I think of this gray, foggy space, where you don't really, for me, it's uncomfortable. I've got my sword in my hand and I'm trying to figure it out. I'm in this forest that's all gray.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Yeah, you don't know, and you're in this kind of this unknown area.
Right.
But that is the pinnacle of meditation, is you're completely aware of a state of stillness and no thought coming in. So you're paying attention. You have this awareness of nothing. And how you get to that takes practice. It's not it's like it happens in a day or happens in a week, or if you practice it for 6 months, this much time it's going to occur. It takes a large body of time over the course of your life to get to that sort of state for any sort of practitioner with whatever you're doing. But when you look at meditation, that space, this thought void, is the point when you don't have material conscious thoughts coming through. And what I mean by that is you're not thinking about your day, your world, how you feel, any of the tics on your body, whatever it might be, right? Think about food digestion. There's nothing coming through. It's the flow of those thoughts, which are constantly happening in our brain, have stopped. So if we go back to the fetal state, when you're in the womb, the spirit and the consciousness are tabula rasa. They're blank slated. At that moment, the consciousness is blank slated. And so the spirit can feed information directly into that consciousness block, right? Prepare it for its life. And so when you go in meditation, it's how do we get back to that state of tabula rasa, that thought void, so that the communication of our spirit then becomes direct with our consciousness.
That makes sense.
So instead of us inundating our thoughts with these very material things and everything else that's going on with our constant stream, because that we're so distracted, we lack awareness. It's funny, lacking awareness increases the thought stream. And as you increase awareness, you can stop that thought stream. And so what you want to do is you want to open up that flow of the spirit to the consciousness. So then that perception of these fine fluidal world that the spirit, actually lives and works in, you can pull that information from. So anybody that does like past life readings, or Akashic records, whatever those things are, they move into that state of thought void if they're a legitimate practitioner. And they have the ability to allow the spirit to bring those images into the consciousness or that information, because they're not plaguing themselves with all these thoughts, these conscious material streams that are blocking all the good, truthful information that the spirit knows.
So whenever you look at, because the spirit, I want to make a distinction, and I know you've talked about this before, but I really want to make a distinction of the spirit and the soul.
Yeah, the soul was a word that was abused by the church, and soul comes from the word seal, and that's a German Proto-Germanic translation to the word like personality or ego. And that's what's interesting about German. Is like a lot of the root derivatives of the things we have, you have to look at the etymology, like the history of that word itself. And so when we look at the seal or the soul, that is strictly the ego. It has nothing to do with the spirit. The spirit is the thing that enlivens and powers the body with creational energy. It's the thing that truly gets all the organs pumping. It's the thing that turns, the heart and the brain on. But the soul is strictly, it's the I. It's how you define yourself. And it has that, they are completely separate, and they're in no way, shape, or form is the soul ever on the level of what the spirit is.
Yes.
And it's funny when people, they talk about spirit like, right here in the chest, like where the heart is. But really, if you're looking at the brain, it's sitting in the midbrain is where the spirit actually sits, that energy, because that is connected directly to all the organs, like through your eyes, seeing any sort of the mental stuff, that's where you want that connection. Why would I want, something sitting in the bottom of my legs to feed up to where my consciousness is? Everything should be in that general localized area. And that's why, there always, in history and drawings, they got like the pine cone to talk about the pineal gland.
Right.
Well, it sits there next to the pineal gland. Like that's where that energizing is actually happening. But the soul is a completely different distinction from what the spirit is. And people tend to blend those together or use them interchangeably, but they're two completely different things. The spirit is part and parcel of creation. Like in the Bhagavad Gita, they talk about it as the para atma. And we've said this before on the podcast. You have all the characteristics of creation inside of you. And that's what the spirit is. It's a piece of creation, But the soul is just this current meat suit.
Right. Yeah. So the spirit in meditation, whenever we get, so let's say like today, 10 minutes, right? My
That's
brain
fine.
is like soaring, which I've learned to just let it go.
Yeah,
Like
let it soar.
like sometimes I come up with pretty good ideas during that time. And for me, sitting in a chair, and just kind of close for now, just kind of closing my eyes and just, sitting here, and I'll breathe, a few times. I had listened to a neuroscientist, and he talked about, this is really interesting. Like when we're little kids and we cry, and then after we're like kind of soothed or whatever, we do and then we breathe out.
Yeah.
He's like the two breaths,
that double step.
double step breath. And he goes, anytime you're feeling stress, and this is a good tip, anytime you're feeling stress, if you do you can do it through your nose, your mouth, or whatever, and then breathe one long one out. He's like, it will instantly cure your stress.
It's interesting because it goes like that. That goes all the way back towards when we were developing as a small child.
Yeah, that's our first thing we do when we come out. We take and then we cry, take that big breath.
And that's what's interesting about the meditation. Meditation is that function of breath. It's that first thing you're doing in life. And so removing those thoughts, the fact that you do it for 10 minutes is super good, but do it for 10 minutes across a period of an hour. So do it meditate for 6 minutes and take a 4-minute break. Stay there But then keep doing it, but do the breaks, and then you can continue to lengthen those things.
So everybody always talks about, I can't meditate because I have ADD, or I can't meditate because I'm OCD, or whatever.
Anybody can meditate. You just have never taken the time to be aware of yourself and sit and be with yourself. You're so busy being distracted by the material world that you've never taken the time to focus on you. It's not that you can't do it. You've just never taken the time to practice it.
So what would be a good starting point for meditation for somebody that has a racing mind?
If you have a racing mind, sit down for 6 minutes, let it race. Just quietly sit there. Then take a 4-minute break, but still sit there. And then go back in for another 6 minutes and let it race. And then take another 4-minute break. And then what you see is that over time, the racing starts to slow down. And then the focus of your meditation begins to change. It takes a moment. Everyone wants everything to be instantaneous.
Yes, that's our society.
But meditation, like the evolution of who we are, our spirit and our consciousness, takes time.
Like in everything in life.
I wish
you work out, it takes time.
The trees take a long time to grow.
Like you don't get fat overnight.
No, you have.
It's taking that fork and shoving it in your mouth.
Yeah, it's a series of bad choices.
Yeah, I mean, it took me drinking and eating, going out to eat every night. In my previous job when I was in Washington State, that doing that for 4 years straight leads to being overweight, having diabetes, and all kinds of stuff.
I saw your driver's license picture. You look terrible.
I know. Yeah, I looked like I was about ready to be done with.
Yeah, no, you did.
dark things under my eyes.
Yeah, you didn't. You lacked the vibrancy of life.
Yes, and that can come from the spirit.
And that because you're
creational vibrancy.
Yeah, you are blocking it. You're making all of these choices. See, the food fatness is a secondary effect of your thoughts.
It's like any, to me, food or whatever is just a distraction. It's like Netflix, your phone, scrolling through social media. It's all the same.
We need to have it to sustain ourselves, but we overdo it and continually distract ourselves with it. And so that's why, I've been doing so much thinking about not thinking, because I want to continue to work towards that state where there's just a perfect flow of truthful creational energy and information that comes to me, whether it's in a pictorial form, like a diaphanous pictorial form. What I mean by diaphanous is if someone takes a picture of you and there's a flash, and you know how it bleaches the rod and you got that bluish white stuff?
Yes.
But it's kind of fogged out. That's diaphanous. So you get that sort of imagery when you're meditating, or you get some sort of audio.
Right.
Or a word comes through that had nothing to do with your stream of conscious thought.
Well, the reason I believe in meditation, and I think it's
belief,
hard.
Not belief.
Right.
You do it.
Yeah, I do.
Do you meditate?
Yeah. Yes.
So then there's no reason for you to believe.
I try. Let's say I try to meditate. I've been on and off of it, and I think a lot of people that are listening would say the same thing. That are spiritually oriented. Mm-hmm. They've tried, but here's the thing that convinced me on meditation more than anything.
Okay.
Is when I look at the past and I look at every religion that's out there, they may have different words for it, like pray or whatever, but every religion has had meditation in it.
All of them.
Anybody that has any type of spiritual sense, there was a part of meditation in all of them, all around the world. People that never communicate or talk to each other figured out meditation. Yeah. So to me, it's a creational truth that I will not be in alignment with who the best person that I can be.
You could never
for humanity unless I meditate.
You have to, because it's a natural state of creation, that stillness, that thought void. Not being plagued by the material world is the natural state. You are preventing the most incredible information from coming to you, from going into your consciousness, from that realm of the spirit that collects and analyzes all that info from creation and your past lives. You're stopping all that from coming in. The consciousness is funny. We as human beings forget things. Do we not?
Yes.
If we did not, by design, forget things, it'd be too much on our nervous system and we would shut down. We have to forget things. But having a tool to go back and recollect memories or thoughts, whether the ones from this life or a past, that's an important thing to have. Because by design, we have to forget things, and we don't have an evolutionary mental capacity to remember, a huge majority of our life.
And I don't think people realize whenever you meditate, it's like if you're not meditating, you're an iPhone 5.
Yeah.
Whenever you meditate, it's like
you're the world's best.
If Steve Jobs
supercomputer.
is still alive, it's like him giving you the latest, greatest R&D
All the
phone.
time.
Yeah, and like, okay, here you go. Here's next. Here,
Yeah,
take
it's like
this
every
one.
week you get a new one.
Yeah, every week you get a new one, and because it's like a human 2.0. It's like an instant upgrade you can do, and it's free.
Yeah, it is free. It costs you nothing. And you know what else I think bums people out is, you go to the gym, you work out, and if you stop for a bit, you lose the muscle or the gains.
Right.
Consciousness doesn't lose the gain. It never forgets that sort of connection you've created. So, me for an example, when I started off meditating, it was only for a brief amount of time. It was a couple minutes. And then that can expand up to an hour. And then if I leave meditation for the bit, I don't have to go back and start at the 4-minute mark, because it always knows how to achieve that state for that length of time. The consciousness never forgets.
So consciousness is like blockchain.
Yeah.
It records them all.
It'll record them all, right? And it'll never
and then
forget
you can
that
just
recording.
add to the chain.
Always adding to it.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not like going to the gym, I got the gains and I lost them. That's a material view of the world. And we take that material view and people put on meditation like, oh, I tried it. Well, keep trying it, because the only thing it can ever do is improve.
I love that. That is such a great analogy, Alex, with understanding that you don't lose gains by. So let's say you fall off the wagon for a week in meditation. When you go back, you're picking up right where you left off, and those gains that you experienced previously are going to be there for you.
That's precisely correct.
So you don't lose anything.
I became so inundated with work and then getting coronavirus, I couldn't meditate for a month.
Right.
And then the second I went to go meditate, when I was feeling better, in under 2 minutes, I was already in the meditative state. It just knows how to do it. It's like your body knowing when it's bedtime, and like you go to the bed, like this is where I sleep.
So let me ask you this: we're going to help some people right now in a big way.
I like helping.
So 2020, it's almost done, over.
Yeah.
Thank God. We have just a couple days left. And I know you were talking about being busy with work, coronavirus and all that. There are a lot of people that are experiencing things. Maybe they've lost their job. Maybe they have a job, but they're not happy in their job. And they've just experienced a shitty year.
Yeah.
A really bad year.
Yeah.
Why is it so important to meditate when you're at this low level state?
That's awesome. That's a great question. When we are in a period of suffering, that's when we're typically most honest with ourselves, and when we have to be most honest with others. You're exposed in periods of suffering. And what's interesting about that is if you've had a bad year, now's that time to meditate and focus on that suffering, because you have to be so bloody honest with yourself, and you really have to focus on the things that created that suffering. And that helps you retune, not realign. All thoughts are exactly how they should be, but it helps you retune them into an equalized positive format. Now I can start to focus on myself. So I've had this suffering. I've learned this honesty, and I figured out what pains me. Now I need to focus on it and how I can continue to evolve from this very low state that I've been in. And so as you meditate through this period of suffering, you're going to learn a great deal about yourself. And then you'll learn that these things that caused you this suffering will no longer cause you suffering in the future. So meditation is like this fabulous tool that allows you to equalize these thoughts that come through, and it allows you to learn from them and be very evolutive in your thinking. It allows you to be very truthful and follow those creational truths when you focus on that sort of suffering, that bad year that you've had. But the thing is, you gotta enter that thought void, and you have to continue to practice to get to that state of not thinking. You're just so aware of not having a thought, which is an amazing concept to really think about. And being so aware of not having a thought is a perfect balance of energies. It's that positive and negative coming together. It's that law of opposites of being aware of nothing.
Why do we, I want to continue on this thought process. Why do we distract ourselves when we're suffering? Why do we distract ourselves the most when that should be the time that we should be the most self-aware?
Well, that's a period of great learning. And people always shy away from, pain and suffering. But they don't realize that in that perceived negativity or that negative moment, that low moment, they don't think that anything can be learned. They just selfishly think that this is pain and I'm being abused, or like, I can pass it off to someone else, like you did this to me. But really, everything comes down to you. That suffering, those moments, from the majority, you've driven yourself to that point through choices of your life of cause and effect. You put yourself there, but you're choosing to ignore it. So you're not looking at this as a beautiful learning moment. And when you look at it as a learning moment, you've already neutralized the negativity and turned it into something positive and beneficial for yourself. Suffering can be very evolutionary, but you choose to prevent it from having that flow of truth that can come from it that allows you to evolve.
I always like for people to picture, because you've seen an ostrich.
I did.
This is a metaphor, but
they're
big.
I saw an emu yesterday.
Yeah, ostriches can kill a person.
Well, I like ostriches.
If you don't, you can ride one, hop on one, and
they do this like weird thing where they take their head and their neck and they flip it back and forth and hit their body. I don't know if they're itching themselves.
Yeah, it's like they can
animals.
bend it way down.
Yeah,
but the proverbial ostrich with their head in the sand.
Yeah,
it's like when we're experiencing suffering, it's like this big awkward bird that just chooses not to accept reality. And just, bends their neck down. And I hope somebody could imagine this big, awkward bird just sticking their head in the sand to say, hopefully whatever happens right now
just passes by and doesn't hurt me.
But the crazy part is how vulnerable you become then.
Yeah, because you at that point, you can't see. You've distracted yourself from reality. And when I say reality, it's not just the material world around you. You've distracted yourself from thoughts that can actually benefit you. So you create this terrible vulnerability, this false view of the world because it's blacked out. Your eyes they're in a hole, where like people say, you got your head up your ass.
Right.
If you can't, you got to see outward, but you also have to see inward. Okay. Like I said, the world requires balance, and we do so much looking out that we forget to look in.
We're not balanced there.
No, we lack balance even in our vision, which is such a basic sensory thing. And people are like, well, how do you look inward? Well, when you say looking inward, it's not physically looking into your own brain, but it's looking in to reflect on those thoughts or the images that come to you or the emotions you feel. That's that internal looking. And you need to do it constantly throughout the day, even when you're not meditating. But when you are meditating, that's a time of that intent focus on that specific thing.
To allow the spirit to work.
Yeah, to allow the spirit to work. We are making the waters muddy, right? If you have dirt, in the base of a vase and there's water in it and you shake it up, the water becomes cloudy and muddy, right? So we have to stop for a moment and be still and not disturb the water so that the dirt can go to the bottom, and then we can scrape that dirt away, and then the water becomes clear, right? So you have to find stillness so that you can isolate that dirt in your life and then clean it away. And so if you consider that as a conscious thought, find stillness, right? Find the thought voids,
yes,
right? Stop that incessant stream that you have. Give your mind the break it requires. And then when those things come in there, you can clear out the things that aren't beneficial by learning from them, saying, oh, thank you very much. Time for you to go. Now I can move on to things that are truly evolutive.
I love that. I think this is perfect time.
That felt pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. Thinking about not thinking.
I love that.
Enter the thought void, Jason.
I will.
Close
the
this
thought
out.
void.
Close this out.
Not the gray foggy with the sword.
Yeah. No.
Look within, and live your life on the edge of two worlds. A reality where you find true understanding of who you are. The learning is done. Become the teacher in embodying the oneness of all. Walk the cliff's edge between the seen and the unseen realities. Become a higher density being. Please go to www.higherdensityliving.com.